Hi everybody, this is the planet Earth here. So I'm going to be making this video. Um, you guys aren't going to be able to really see anything, but I'm going to talk about anxiety and how it's affected me and how it has affected over 100 to 200 million people on this planet. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about it now. Hi guys, this is the planet Earth here, and I'm going to tell you today about my story of how I developed anxiety, and I'm gonna go even in more detail. Alexandros, hey bro, so this is gonna be a little bit different video, a live stream that I've done. This is gonna be way different. I am going to put my heart out there about anxiety and attacks, and for people that don't suffer from anxiety, they need to hear this. And they need to know how serious it is. So Alexandros, I have multiple sclerosis, and it affects my vision. It gives me nystagmus where I never had nystagmus before in my life, and I'm afraid I might have had a mini stroke, but I'm not 100% sure. Or if it's some sort of if it's cataracts causing it, or if it's the multiple sclerosis. The multiple sclerosis is probably causing it, and I'll just have to deal with that for the rest of my life. It's not that big of a deal as long as I treat MS symptoms. It shouldn't progress too much worse. I don't care if my vision shakes. I just don't want to have no vision at all. You know what I mean? Now, I'm going to go ahead and talk about anxiety and the situation around anxiety and how severe it is. So, I'm just going to talk about the anxiety and how bad it gets. So, here we go. Anxiety is a mental disorder, but it is also a medical disorder at the same time. Anxiety attacks often mimic heart attacks without the chest pain most of the time. Anxiety attacks mimic heart attacks and arrhythmias because of the release of adrenaline. Adrenaline that's released into the bloodstream via the brain goes into the bloodstream, causes extremely high blood pressure and a fight or flight response. So it causes your bones and muscles to get blood where it's not usually there, and it might be cause you to turn pale while you're fighting or flighting. But technically, even though you feel faint in that moment of the feeling faint or the lightheadedness, technically, even though you feel lightheaded and dizzy, if you start spinning or whatever, I mean, theoretically and technically, even though you feel like crap at that moment, you could actually probably run a half mile or a mile in that sense of trying to get the hell out of the situation that you're in or that your brain thinks that you're in. So theoretically, even though you feel like absolute crap and dizzy and vertigo and whatnot, you might experience some of that during a really intense anxiety attack. Surprisingly, you're actually ready to fight, which is crazy. But with anxiety disorder, it's a common occurrence to experience it every day. And people who say, "Oh, Ben, you're being over dramatic about your anxiety. Ben, it's just fake. Ben, this and Ben, that." Well, until they have a real panic attack and they actually feel like they're physically dying, they won't ever understand what it feels like to go through a terrible, horrible nightmare. Okay, this disorder is a nightmare. It's pure evil. This disorder. I don't know why that we developed this disorder as humans, but in my honest opinion, I think it's an evil disorder. It's evil. It's hell. It's an evil disorder. It should. I wish it was. I wish it could just be banned. You know what I mean? Like, I wish anxiety could just be banned out of society and the world. I don't know why we developed this disorder. I don't know why it just never goes away no matter what you do. Overcoming anxiety is extremely difficult for most people. It's extremely difficult for most people, especially ones that have been abused, to suddenly stop having anxiety. It's almost impossible, actually. And most people that suffer from anxiety, they usually get a little bit better with the panic attacks as they get older, but then they start having the generalized anxiety disorder, and that's where they develop the agoraphobia and it just never really goes away. Like, no matter what you do, say, think, no matter how much therapy you do, I mean, unless it's like a mild form of anxiety that can be controlled without medication, yeah, okay, sure, you could probably get rid of it. But for people like me that have suffered from multiple anxiety attacks, panic attacks every few weeks or week, it depends on the month and year, I guess, and it depends on how stressed out I was in the time that I was stressed and all that other bull crap. And if I was driving, or if I was at home, or if I was in Cali, or if I was in Ohio, or whatever, it just depends. But all that stress has caused me medical problems. So if you suffer from an anxiety disorder, for the love of God, please get help immediately. Don't suffer anymore. Because if you let your body suffer for too long, you're going to start developing medical problems like I have. And now I realize my mistake. I had so many anxiety attacks, had so many panic attacks. I've been to the ER room. Nobody like us should be going to an ER room unless we're having a heart attack or stroke or aneurysm or some sort of tumor or something stupid like that. Like, we shouldn't even be going to the ER room. I don't know what is wrong with us humans, man. We're flawed, man. Some of us are just flawed. It's ridiculous. Some of us are just destined to have this stuff. Like, it's genetic, and it just never goes away because it's part of our genes. Unless they can create a mutation, a gene manipulation where they can get rid of the excessive anxiety gene, it's just not going to stop. It's never gonna end. It's a conundrum. It's a bottomless pit. It never ends. It will never end, no matter what we do. And I think doctors are starting to kind of understand that at this point in time. It never stops. Thank you, Chess Hall. Ben, you're awesome. People that don't have anxiety don't understand how we feel. Yeah, exactly. Thank you for your $9.99. Appreciate that. People just don't understand that the anxiety is not just mental, it's physiological. It affects a person physiologically. It raises their blood pressure. It causes them to feel faint. It causes them to pass out. It causes them to have heart attack symptoms without the heart attack, of course. It causes a lot of problems that are physical, and it's hard to explain to people that don't have the disorder because they think it's like almost like fake. But when they don't have the disorder and it doesn't affect them for many years like it has us, we get exhausted after so many years of anxiety. Like, ask anybody that has a real anxiety problem. They get exhausted from it. Us that suffer from anxiety, we don't know what to do. We suffer within our own brain every single day. Almost multiple times a day. Sometimes it depends on the person. Some people have no anxiety throughout their whole lives. They live a very healthy, long life, right? And they can live to be like 80, 90, maybe 100. No heart disease, no cataracts. They don't suffer from debilitating medical illnesses. And then there's some people that just have no luck at all, and they get cancer at 20 and then pass away at 30. And then there's some that develop schizophrenia before the age of 30. And then there's some that develop schizophrenia at the age of 10 or 11, and they start hearing voices. And people think it's a joke. Like, people that don't suffer from this type of stuff, they think it's a joke, and it's not even a joke. They think it's funny. It's not funny. When somebody's panicking, it literally feels like you're going to die. It's hard to explain, but it physically feels like you're going to die. And if you ever have doubts in people that have anxiety disorders, I dare you, when they're having a real bad panic attack and they're saying help, help, or they're running or they're hiding, check their pulse, and I guarantee you'll change your fucking mind. Check their pulse, check their blood pressure. You'll see what I'm talking about. It. Just check the pulse. You'll see what they're talking about. Like, just check their pulse. If you have doubt that somebody's having a real anxiety attack, check their pulse and you see it. You see how fast it's going. Anxiety is no frills, no thrills. There's nothing fun about it. It releases adrenaline, it releases adenosine or whatever the hell it's called, the stress hormone, and it just causes absolute terror in the brain of the person suffering from the anxiety disorder. It is the fastest my pulse ever was during an anxiety attack was 220 beats per minute. No joke, by the way. 220 beats per minute. That was the fastest my pulse ever been. And it's just, I don't know if I've had a faster pulse than that, but I can remember 220 beats per minute was ridiculous. That's ridiculous. That's a lot of speed, by the way. But just in general, guys, it's hard to explain to persons that don't suffer from anxiety, and then they bash us for having anxiety. How many of you guys in here have been bashed and made fun of or insulted or degraded because you have it? How many of you guys have been either degraded by a doctor, a relative, or a friend that makes jokes out of anxiety attacks? Any of you guys had that problem? Have any of you guys actually had that problem? You got fired. Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. People think it's a joke, and it's not a joke. People, it's not a joke. This shit is real. Why do you think my anxiety attacks have so many views? Because people in this world, they suffer from panic attacks. And they think it's a joke, and they think it's fake, and it's not. I'm sorry, guys, but it's not fake. This is not something that, oh, yeah, well, you're suffering from anxiety, and it's not fake. Okay, there's nothing fake about anxiety. Post get during anxiety attacks. It isn't good. And everybody that says that anxiety attacks are fake, that's really sad of you guys to do that to us. All these people that have subscribed to my channel over the years from anxiety, look at my anxiety attack videos. They have 30, 40K each. That means that over at least 20 to 30,000 of those people suffer secretly. They don't say nothing to nobody because they don't want to look like they're weak. I wouldn't wish anxiety on my worst enemy. See, when people start saying I don't want to wish anxiety on my worst enemy, there's a problem. Because anxiety disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, is not a joke. It's not something you joke with. It's not something that you can joke with. Let me give you an example of some physical problems that happen during a massive panic attack. In the emergency rooms in the United States, they don't take it very seriously. When somebody's genuinely having a really bad panic attack, usually what they do is called triage. I don't know if they do it in different countries, but in the United States of America, what they do is when you go to the ER room, you usually have a waiting room, and then you have somebody like registration. You give them your complaint. Are you having chest pain? Are you having shortness of breath? Are you about to faint on me? Do you faint in front of them? And if you don't, what they'll usually do is, if there's people waiting, they'll make you wait at the waiting, and you're panicking. But then what they do is called triage, where they have like a nurse that's already kind of in the front of a hospital, and they take your blood pressure and your pulse. And if they see that the vital signs are out of whack, they will prioritize you over other people. Like if your pulse is like 160, 170 beats per minute, oh, you're going to be going to the back real quick. You're not just going to be sitting back in the front. There's like a priority, a stat of how fast the pulse rate is in the United States. So if the beats are going really fast, or if your pulse is normal but your blood pressure is at least 180 over 120, they're probably going to pull you to the back really quickly to find out what the hell is going on with you. Most of the time, most doctors are kind of understanding. Some doctors are very reluctant to give you medications, but then there's some doctors that will try to calm you down while you're in the ER room. And what they'll do is they might inject you with a benzodiazepine, or they might inject you with Benadryl, or they might give you both. They might give you 25 milligrams of Benadryl, and they might give you a half milligram of Ativan, or depending on how much, if you've taken benzos before, they might give you 50 milligrams of Benadryl and then a milligram of Ativan. For me, I just tell them, what can you do for me? Or I don't say nothing, and I just start panicking, and I'm like, I physically feel like I am dying.
And then you get that, and then the worst one it is worse than even the high heartbeats, and even worse than the high heartbeats, and even worse than the high blood pressure, shortness of breath, fillings. That's even worse, in my opinion, than having a high heart rate. Is palpitations and shortness of breath. Those scare me the most, obviously, because that's your breathing. You feel like you're like, you're like choking, but it's not actually choking. You're still breathing, but it doesn't feel like you're getting enough air, and you think there's something wrong with your heart immediately. That's a instinct that we have as humans. When you don't breathe, you immediately think something's wrong with either your lungs or your heart, and it's an immediate response. So then, if your heart rate's already high as it is, and then all of a sudden you start having breathing issues where you feel like you can't get enough air, then your body's going to release even more adrenaline and freak out even more. And then all of a sudden, it's a conundrum. All of a sudden, you got the ER room staff working up on you as quickly as possible because they think that you may be having some sort of maybe a heart issue, or you're having a lung issue, or maybe you have a block in your lungs, or they might think you're having an embolism, or they might think that your lung might have collapsed. So they're checking you real quick, and then they put you in the ER room. But usually, the first line of defense, if it doesn't look like you're seriously about to die, what they'll do is they will probably just shoot you with an antihistamine and maybe a little bit of an anti-anxiety medication to calm your nerves. So then once you start calming down, see what happens is in the GABA receptors in our brain, the benzodiazepines, they get into the receptors here, and what they do is this is what's happening during a panic attack. What? Just watch my fingers. Okay, that's what's happening during a panic attack. The GABA receptors are just going like this. They're going haywire, and they're misfiring a little bit, and they're just doing this. You can also have a seizure, by the way, doing that. And this is just going like this during a massive panic attack when your pulse is high and your adrenaline's rushing. Your brain's thinking at a million miles per hour faster than normal. But then when the Ativan or Xanax or Klonopin or Valium kicks in, or if you have a mild disorder and you take an antihistamine, this is what happens. All of a sudden it does this. And it's still, it's still firing, but then all of a sudden it forces the GABA receptors to do this. It to calm down a little bit. It's like it forces the receptors to just kind of take a break. Like a car. You know how the cars are moving like this, the pistons, and they're going super fast. So then with the medication, it forces the GABA receptors to just go like this to normal. So it's like a car that's out of control. You have the you've heard the stories where the accelerators are pushed down on the cars and they can't stop the car. That's what a panic attack is. Same shit. It causes this. It causes the car to be at full acceleration, and then when it's like pushing the brakes on a car, what happens is the motor slows down. So if the motor slows down, the revs per minute slow down, and it causes. No, I have not been able to go to my doctors because I don't have the money, and because I don't have the money, I don't have any Ativan. So right now I'm actually withdrawing, and I checked my blood pressure. It's dangerously high, but what can I do? I'm probably gonna end up. I don't know. I'm suffering right now, but I'm just trying to explain to everybody just in case something happens. So what happens is with the medication, it just calms it down. In other words, you put the brake on the car. I go to the doctor on Thursday. Oh, but let me keep explaining what's happening, okay? Just don't mind the blank screen. It's just me in the blanket because what happens is when I'm going through withdrawal, the lights bother my eyes. So what ends up happening after the GABA receptors calm down is the brain's like, okay, I've calmed down. So the adrenaline that is being released. By the way, your body is amazing when it comes to this. So the body releases the adrenaline and it stops the production of adrenaline. So when the adrenaline is released into the body, you know what happens? You guys ever notice that when you're recovering from a massive panic attack, you guys start shaking? Some people do, some people don't. But in most cases, if you guys have ever noticed, you'll stop just kind of shake, like physically, like you're shaking. Well, that's because the adrenaline's already been released into your bloodstream. And once the adrenaline is released into the bloodstream, the chemical causes contractions of muscles. So it causes you to shake as it's being. The only way the body can release it is by you running or by you shaking. That's the only way to kind of get rid of the excess adrenaline that's within the body. You also have another chemical that's released during a massive panic attack. It's called I think it's adenosine. It's a stress hormone. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but it's a stress hormone, and that stress hormone, raises your blood pressure. It causes disturbances in your vision. It can cause, in its person with a blood disorder, it could cause a stroke, and somebody with heart disease, a massive panic attack can go into a heart attack. So if you have heart disease, then you have to be even extra careful and extra medicated to prevent that from happening. And it's unfortunate that these doctors in the United States and around the world, by the way, hate benzodiazepines so much in an acute emergency situation. And it just makes me sad that these doctors are so worried about their licenses that they're scared to write benzodiazepines. And it's not even our fault. It's the people that don't suffer from anxiety that do Ativan, Klonopin, Xanax, and Valium recreationally, and they mix it with opioids, and they end up overdosing on those medications like idiots, or they drink it with alcohol like idiots. And because of that, it's ruined us. It's ruined medication that is meant for people with seizure disorder, that is meant for alcohol withdrawal, and it's meant for really bad anxiety disorders that we're supposed to take it short term, but these doctors wrote it for long term, and it ended up screwing most of us over. So I've been trying to be as clear as possible about this. I've been trying to be as transparent as possible. Anxiety disorder can happen out of nowhere. It can happen randomly. It literally can happen while you're in the middle of the desert, or it can happen when you're in New York City. And I hate New York City, but it's a beautiful city. I just hate it. It's weird. Like New York City gives me the most anxiety. I literally have to leave within an hour, by the way. Even in the middle of the night, I can't take being surrounded by all those buildings. It gives me anxiety because except for Central Park, there's really nowhere to hide. Like in New York City, there's nowhere that you can go to relax. So I guess liberals would say a safe space. New York is not my safe space. I have to go in the middle of nowhere, New Jersey, just to relax, or I have to go find a quiet neighborhood to park or something when I'm having a massive panic attack. But in Texas, I could just go to the country and relax and I'd be fine. But here, it's just impossible to find open land, or New Jersey's full of trees and all that bull crap, and it's just a conundrum of houses that are put together. And I guess that's just how people live in the Northeast. But in Texas, there was space between buildings, so you could relax and you could find a side street, or you could go to the country, you could go on the side roads and take a drive and calm down a little bit, but not in New York City. I don't understand how people in New York City can live. Like, I know that they're used to it because they were raised there, but how can you live in a city where it's just concrete all the time? Like, could just imagine that. Just imagine living in a city where it's just concrete everywhere you go, and there's no grass, there's not enough trees. You can't really enjoy. Yeah, of course, like I said, you have Central Park, but that's not the point. The point is you're surrounded by these buildings, and there's nowhere to go. Like, especially during the daytime, there's nowhere to hide. There's nowhere to hide in Central Park. I do have PVCs occasionally, premature ventricular contractions. I've had those occasionally, but I used to have them when I was younger, and I've not had them now. However, sometimes I have a regular rhythm that happens randomly. What happens is I get like this weird skipping of the heartbeat, like it'll go thump thump, and then stop, and then kind of like skip, and then skip, and then skip, and then go back to normal. Very scary, very scary feeling. It's a very scary feeling because you can feel it. And you don't know if your heart's about to give out right there. So, but the heart is pretty strong. I mean, it likes to tick, so it usually takes its own self out of the rhythm. Now, that's normal for almost everybody on this earth. You do occasionally have episodic heartbeats or whatever the hell they call it, skipped heartbeats, and it happens to every single person. But guys, like I said, I can only explain so much to you, and I've tried. You know what's funny is I actually have less anxiety attacks when I'm chasing a tornado. Isn't that weird? Don't you guys find that kind of weird? Like, I could chase a tornado and not have anxiety attacks, but I'll be at home and then I'll have a massive anxiety attack out of nowhere. Does that make any sense to anybody around here? What is wrong with us? Like, what is wrong with us as humans? I literally chase a tornado, I have no problems, but then I come home, I have panic attack. That doesn't make sense. What is wrong with us humans, man? What is wrong with us? Man, we are some flawed mother truckers, guys. We are flawed. We are flawed, man. We were flawed from the beginning. And then you know what's sad is what makes it worse is all the greed and the all the evil that happens on this planet in general, and all the evil people on this planet, and then I think that just makes our anxiety worse. I genuinely believe that it doesn't help. And you'll have some doctors that are just like, oh, you know what? F you, bro. You ain't gonna get shit. Suffer. And then there's those evil doctors out there that just don't care about nobody. And, we come to them and expect them to take the oath, a Hippocratic oath to help no matter what. And they don't do the Hippocratic oath, especially when somebody is suffering. And I always thought that doctors were supposed to take the pain away, whether it be physical or mental. That's why they have psychiatrists, for physical or for mental. Anxiety does tend to be higher in people that don't have anger problems. Me, I do. I have a lot of anger problems, though. I get angry easily. And no, I'm not proud of it, by the way. I'm not proud of being an angry person. But before I was an angry person, I was a nice person. I became angry over the years because of my anxiety, and I let it get to me. I hate having anxiety. It sucks. And I know that everybody that watches these videos have anxiety. And I know it sucks for them. And some people have anxiety, but they ghost my videos. In other words, they watch them, they don't say nothing because they don't want to be found out that they have it. He told me you were fat, and that's why I have anxiety. Are you lying? A psychiatrist really told you were fat, and they really? You were fat, so that's why you have anxiety. Some people are just so fucking rude. It's just unbelievable. That psychiatrist would not say that to a New Jerseyan or a New Yorker. They get their ass kicked. I know they'd get their ass kicked if they said that. I know they'd get their ass kicked. They wouldn't say that to a New Jersey and a New Yorker. They might be able to get away with that where you're at, but if they were in New Jersey or New York, these people are insane. I don't think he would. I think he'd get his ass kicked, but that's just me. So if you guys are suffering from anxiety, please get help. And get it immediately. Don't get it later. Don't wait. You're suffering from anxiety, go get help. And don't delay your help, by the way. Do not delay your help. It's not worth it. Don't do it. Don't delay your health, man. It's your health. You only got one heart. You only got one set of lungs. And it's kind of hard to get another heart or lungs. So, if you guys have this issue, then please get it checked, okay? Because if you don't, all that stress over the years is going to take a toll on your body physically, and you might get unlucky like me and develop multiple sclerosis, or you might develop Meniere's disease. A lot of vestibular problems stem from constant panic attacks because of all that adrenaline all the time.
being released over the years, it kind of affects you in a bad way. And you might develop heart disease, or you might develop, high cholesterol, high triglycerides. Or even if you don't develop all of that, you might become depressed because of all that stuff that's happening to you. And because of all that stuff that's happening to you, end up developing physical problems because of all that stuff that's happening to you. So please get checked immediately. Thank you guys for watching. This has been the Planet Earth here.